This is lunch. It's the best thing you'll ever eat, and it cost me $2. I want you to really think about that. $2. Back in Cleveland, that might get you a small coffee from a gas station. Here in Chiang Mai, it's an incredible, steaming bowl of cow soy from a woman who has been making it for 30 years. It's more than a meal, it's an experience. My apartment, a modern place with a swimming pool and a little gym, cost me $250 a month. The heating bill for my quiet, empty house back in Ohio was $400 a month in the winter. Just the bill for the heat. My entire rent here is a little more than half of what it cost me just to stay warm for 30 miserable days. You're told your whole life that you need $1 million to retire. You see it on the news, you hear it from financial advisors. $1 million. It's a number that feels impossible, a finish line that keeps moving further away. It's designed to make you feel like you're already behind, that a comfortable future is a luxury you probably haven't earned. And I'm telling you, it's not true. It's the biggest myth out there. You don't need $1 million. What you need is a plan, and you need to be willing to get on a plane. You need to do the math. My life here, a good life, a life where I'm not constantly worried about money, is paid for entirely by my Social Security check. That's it. My nest egg, the money I worked 30 years to save, it's sitting in a bank, untouched. People think I got lucky, or that this is some kind of wild vacation. It's not. This was a calculated, logical decision. It was a business plan for my own life. And to understand how it's even possible, you have to understand the life I left behind. You have to go back to Cleveland. To understand why a $2 lunch in Thailand feels like winning the lottery, you have to understand my life back in Cleveland. For over 30 years, I was Rob Peterson of Peterson Heating and Cooling. It was my name on the side of the van. When your furnace went out in the middle of a January blizzard, I was the guy you called. It was hard work, honest work. You crawl into dusty attics in August and frozen basements in February. You solve problems. You make things work. I was good at it. I built a business from scratch, a real one, and it provided a good life for me and my family. But businesses get sold and families change. My wife and I, we were married for 35 years. High school sweethearts. The divorce wasn't a war. There was no shouting, no big drama. It was quieter than that. It was the slow, sad realization that we had become two people living in the same house, but not in the same life. When it was finalized, I was 58. The kids were long gone, building their own lives in other states. And suddenly, I was alone in a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs, a house that was once filled with the noise of a family, and now is just quiet. A deep, heavy quiet that the television couldn't fill. My social life became a few beers with the same guys I'd worked with for decades. We complain about the Browns, talk about our health, and then go home. I felt like I'd been put out to pasture, a tool that was no longer needed. And the numbers, they told a scary story. I'm a numbers guy. In my business, if your calculations are wrong, the system fails. I looked at my own life the same way. I had my Social Security, which came to about $1,250 a month. And I had my nest egg, $325,000 from selling the business and the house. On paper, that sounds okay. It sounds comfortable. But I did the math. A retirement in Cleveland meant that my $1,250 would be gone before it even hit my bank account. Property taxes on that empty house. The Medicare premiums. The rising cost of just putting food on the table. And the utilities. That $400 heating bill wasn't a one-time thing. It was every winter. To just live, to just exist in that quiet house, I'd have to start draining my savings. I had a spreadsheet, and it showed me a future of managed decline. It showed my life's work, that $325,000, slowly bleeding out just to maintain a basic, lonely, and unexciting life. That wasn't a plan. It was a slow-motion surrender, and I've never been the kind of man who surrenders. The moment everything changed wasn't some grand epiphany. It was a piece of paper. The heating bill for January, $407. I stood there in the quiet hallway of my empty house, looking at that number, and I just felt tired. Tired of the cold that seeped through the windows, tired of the gray sky, and tired of paying a fortune just to keep an empty house from freezing. It was a perfect symbol for my life. I was spending all my energy just to maintain something that had no joy in it. And for some reason, I thought about a kid who used to work for me, a young guy named Mark. He'd taken a trip a few years back and showed me the pictures on his phone. He went to northern Thailand. I remember at the time just nodding along, but the images stuck with me. They weren't party pictures from some beach. They were mountains, these incredible green mountains covered in mist, old temples, and bowls of food that looked better than anything I'd ever eaten. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet. So I got on my computer and I typed something into YouTube I'd never thought I'd type: affordable retirement. Then, remembering Mark's pictures, I typed expat life Chiang Mai, and I fell down a rabbit hole. For hours, I watched videos, not of wild young backpackers, but of men my age, guys who looked like they could be my neighbors, and they were living well. They were talking about their monthly budgets, showing their apartments, talking about their friends, and a spreadsheet started to form in my mind. For the first time in years, I felt like I had a problem I could solve. This wasn't a daydream, it was a project. For 6 months, I treated it like a job. I got up every morning and did my research. I joined expat forums and I just read. I learned to spot the difference between the guys who were happy and the guys who were just lonely in a warmer place. I made a list of cities. I crossed Pattaya off that list almost immediately. The videos and the forums told me it was a trap for men looking for the wrong things, a place that would chew you up and spit you out. I was running away from loneliness, not towards a different version of it. I kept coming back to Chiang Mai. The numbers made sense, and the lifestyle seemed calmer, more sustainable. It was a place for living, not just for visiting. After 6 months of research, I knew I had to go see it for myself. You can't install a furnace based on a YouTube video. You have to be there, take the measurements, kick the tires. So I booked a flight for a 1-month reconnaissance trip. I went with a checklist and a notebook. I rented a small apartment to see what it really cost. I ate at the street stalls and the little restaurants, tracking every single dollar, or bought. I walked through the markets, places like Wererot Market, and saw the prices for fresh food. And I talked to people. I met other retirees, guys from the US, from the UK, from Australia. I bought them a beer and I asked them pointed questions. What's the real cost of your visa? How's the healthcare? What do you do when you get bored? I wasn't asking for travel tips. I was conducting interviews. In my spreadsheet, my plan, it held up. I confirmed it right there on the ground. A good, comfortable, engaging life was possible for less than $1,000 a month. Flying back to Cleveland was the strangest feeling. I was leaving the sunshine and color of Thailand and returning to a world that suddenly felt black and white. The decision was made. The next 2 months were a blur of selling things. The house went first, then the furniture, the tools, a lifetime of possessions sold off piece by piece on Facebook Marketplace. It was hard, but it was also liberating. Each thing I sold felt like a chain I was breaking. Finally, it was just me, 2 suitcases, and a one-way ticket. I remember sitting on that plane, watching the lights of America disappear below, and I wasn't scared. I was a man with a plan, and for the first time in a long time, I was moving towards something, not just waiting for the end. Stepping off the plane into the Chiang Mai air was like walking into a warm, fragrant cloud. You know that heavy, damp heat that hits you? It wasn't oppressive, though. It felt alive. For the first time, all my research, my spreadsheets, my YouTube videos, it all stopped being a theory. It was real. I wasn't just looking at pictures of a new life anymore. I was standing right in the middle of it. The first month, I lived in the same little serviced apartment I'd stayed in during my reconnaissance trip. It gave me a home base while I looked for a permanent place. People talk about the challenges, the culture shock, but for me, the biggest shock was how easy it was. How everything I had written down in my notebook, all the costs I had projected, they weren't just accurate. In some cases, they were pessimistic. The plan worked. It's like designing a new HVAC system on paper, and then you fire it up for the first time and the pressure gauges read exactly what you calculated. There's no better feeling. This is my place now. It's in a simple, modern condo building. I have a small balcony that looks out over the trees, a swimming pool downstairs, and even a little gym I use most mornings. It's clean, it's secure, and it costs me $250 a month. That's my rent. My utilities, and that's electric, water, and high-speed internet that's faster than what I had in Cleveland, come to about $70 a month. So I'm all in for my housing at $320. That's less than the heating bill for my empty house back in Ohio. It's insane when you stop and think about it. My transportation is this scooter. I rent it for $50 a month. At first, I was a little nervous about it, but now, I can't imagine life without it. It's freedom. It lets me zip down to my local spot for that $2 bowl of cow soy, or head over to the big market, where I can buy a week's worth of fresh fruit, vegetables, and chicken for less than $20. I eat better now than I ever have in my life, and I spend about $300 a month on food, and that includes going out to eat with friends a few times a week. And you do make friends. I joined an expat hiking club. Every weekend, we're out exploring the mountains around here. These are guys from all over the world, other problem solvers who did the same math I did. We'll grab a beer afterward, and the bill for a whole round of drinks is what I used to pay for a single craft beer back home. So let's just lay it all out. Here's the receipt, the proof that this works. My rent is $250. Utilities, $70. Food is $300. My scooter is $50. My visa and a good health insurance plan average out to about $100 a month. And I budget another $180 for miscellaneous stuff, for entertainment, for those beers with friends. You add all that up, and my total monthly cost to live a good, comfortable, and interesting life here in Chiang Mai is $950. My Social Security check is $1,250. That means after I've paid for everything, my home, my food, my fun, I still have a $300 surplus. Every single month, that money goes into a separate account, a travel fund. And my nest egg, that $325,000 I worked my whole life for, it's sitting right where it was, completely untouched. I'm not just surviving here. I'm living, and my savings are actually growing. Now, it sounds like a perfect picture when I lay out the numbers like that, doesn't it? Rent, $250. Lunch, $2. A $300 surplus every month. And it is perfect now, but I need to be honest with you. Getting here wasn't just a smooth flight and a cheap taxi ride. My first 6 months in Chiang Mai were some of the hardest I've had since I started my own business 30 years ago. There were days I'd sit on my little balcony, listen to the strange birds and the motorbikes, and think, Rob, what in the world have you done? The plan, the spreadsheet, it's a great tool, but it can't account for the feeling of being completely and totally on your own. My first big test wasn't finding an apartment or a good place to eat. It was the Thai retirement visa. On paper, it's straightforward. You have to be over 50, and you need to show either a monthly income or a lump sum of money in a Thai bank account, 800,000 baht, which is about 25,000 US dollars. The thing is, dealing with bureaucracy in a language you don't speak is like trying to fix a furnace with a blindfold on. You can feel the parts, but you have no idea how they fit together. There were trips to the immigration office where I'd take a number, wait for 2 hours, get to the counter, and realize I had the wrong form, or I needed one more copy of my passport photo. It was frustrating, deeply frustrating. I saw other guys there, red-faced and yelling, and you could see them washing out, failing the test. And I had that moment where the old me, the tired me from Cleveland, just wanted to go home. But then the other part of me, the part that built a business from nothing, kicked in. I thought, this is just a system. It's a problem to be solved. So I went back to my apartment, I sat down, and I made a new checklist, a new plan, just for the visa. I found an agent, a nice Thai lady who charged me a small fee to walk me through it. I learned to be patient, to have all my paperwork in perfect order, and to just smile. And when that visa stamp finally went into my passport, it felt like I had just closed the biggest deal of my life. I had proved to myself I could still navigate a complex system. The next challenge wasn't about paperwork. It was about the quiet. I left a quiet house in Cleveland just to find myself in a quiet apartment in Chiang Mai. For the first month, my only real conversations were with cashiers. I'd eat alone. I'd walk around the city, and I'd see groups of friends, expats and Thais, laughing and talking, and that old feeling of being on the outside looking in started to creep back. This is the trap that my research warned me about. This is where lonely men come to be lonely in a warmer climate. And I realized my plan had a hole in it. It was a great financial plan, but it wasn't a social one. So I had to make another choice. I could sit in my room and watch my savings grow, or I could get out there and build a life. It was terrifying. I'm not a guy who just walks up and talks to strangers. But I forced myself. I went to an expat coffee morning I found on Facebook. I felt like the new kid in school. It was awkward. I tried a language exchange group and felt even more out of place. But I kept showing up. I treated it like a job. The job was make a friend. Finally, I saw a post for the hiking club. Now that was something I understood. A clear task. You walk from point A to point B. And on that first hike, up a steep trail to a temple on a mountaintop, I started talking to a guy, an engineer from Australia. We weren't talking about our feelings. We were talking about the trail, about the gear, about the view. It was a problem we were solving together. And at the end, when we were all sitting around, tired and sweaty and drinking a cold beer that cost $1, I realized I wasn't on the outside anymore. I was part of a group. I had found my people. And that's when everything else started to click into place. The little daily frustrations, like trying to explain to a mechanic that my scooter was making a clicking noise, they stopped being crises and started becoming part of the adventure. You learn to laugh at yourself when you're using hand gestures and making engine sounds in the middle of a busy street. You learn a few words of Thai, enough to say hello, thank you, and how much. You find your spots. You become a regular. The woman at the cow soy stall, she sees me coming now and just nods. She knows what I want. It's not just a transaction anymore. It's a connection. These are the things you can't put on a spreadsheet. These small victories, these little breakthroughs, that's what turns a foreign country into a home. It wasn't easy. It took work. It took being willing to feel foolish, to feel lonely, and to keep going anyway. But I built this, just like I built that business back in Cleveland. And that's a feeling no amount of money can buy. There's a moment when the plan stops being a plan. It stops being a spreadsheet. It becomes real. For me, that moment didn't happen in my apartment or in the immigration office. It happened on a boat. I was taking a small trip, a vacation from my retirement. That's a funny thought, isn't it? The trip was paid for by the surplus. The $300 a month that my budget said should be left over after everything else was paid for. For 2 years, I'd been putting that money aside, and now I was using it. I was on a long-tail boat off the coast of Krabi, heading to a beach you can only get to from the water. The sun was hot. The water was a color I didn't know existed in real life. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was just a routine notification from my bank back in the States. An annual statement or something. I almost ignored it. But for some reason, I opened it. And I saw the number. The big one. The nest egg. $331,000. I just stared at it. For 2 full years, I hadn't looked. I was so focused on living within my Social Security budget that I never checked. I didn't want the temptation. And now, looking at it, it wasn't smaller. It was bigger. The investments had grown a little. Not a lot. But it hadn't been touched. Not $1 had been withdrawn. And it all just hit me, in a way it never had before. The sound of the boat's engine faded away. The heat of the sun, the smell of the salt in the air. Everything just went quiet in my head. And I saw that heating bill. $407. I saw the empty rooms in that house. I felt that deep, unshakable cold of a Cleveland winter, and the even colder fear that my life was over, that I was just waiting for my savings to run out. That man, that scared man in the quiet house, he wasn't me anymore. I didn't even know him. 2 years, a good life, a life with friends and laughter and purpose, all paid for, all of it, without touching a single cent of my life's work. I put the phone away. I looked up at the giant limestone cliffs coming out of the sea. It wasn't a spreadsheet anymore. It was real. I was free. The problem wasn't just solved. It was gone. And I knew, right there in that little boat, with a feeling so absolute it was like a physical impact, that I was never going back. So that's where I am now, 3 years into this new chapter. It's funny, I spent 30 years crawling around in basements and attics, and my back hurt every single morning. Now, I'm 20 pounds lighter, I walk up mountains for fun, and I feel better at 62 than I did at 52. I'm not just surviving on my Social Security check. I'm thriving. And my nest egg, that $325,000 I worked my whole life to build, it's still there, untouched, growing. The plan didn't just work. It worked better than I ever calculated. So, if you're watching this, and any part of my story about that quiet house and those heating bills feels familiar, I want you to listen. This isn't about luck. It's about a blueprint. And there are 3 things you have to get right. First, retirement is a math problem before it's a dream. You have to treat it like a job. Before you even look at a plane ticket, you open up a spreadsheet. You measure twice and cut once. You put in the real numbers, your income, your expenses, everything. A dream is nice, but numbers are honest. Get the numbers right, and the dream takes care of itself. Second, you have to choose a place for the life you want to live every day, not the vacation you want to take for a week. I ruled out places like Pattaya because my research told me it was a party town, a place that would drain my wallet and my spirit. I didn't want a party, I wanted a life. I chose Chiang Mai because it was a place to live, to build routines, to be a regular. Don't pick a place for the nightlife. Pick it for the morning coffee. And third, and this is the most important one, a budget gets you here, but it won't make you happy. Integration is the key. Happiness is learning to say hello and thank you in Thai and getting a real smile back. It's joining that hiking club even when you're nervous. It's finding your little spot for cow soy where the lady knows your order. You have to be willing to be a beginner again. You have to build a new life, not just pay for an old one in a new location. Look, if you're my age and you're feeling stuck, like the reward you worked for your whole life is just another set of bills, I need you to hear me. You have more options than you think. This isn't about being rich. It's about being smart with what you have. Don't let your story end in a quiet house in a cold town. If you want to see the exact budget spreadsheet I use and the steps for the retirement visa, I've put a link in the description below. Stop dreaming about a better life. It's time to do the math and make it happen.